Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Shepherd's Corner. My name is Deacon Walcott, and we have conversations every week with our Archbishop. I just want to let you all know that. And he doesn't hide from, challenging issues. And this week, we're going to take on a heavy one. And that's all I want to say. We're taking on a heavy issue this week. And I hope you're ready, because I want to later buckle up. I'm saying it before he does. Buckle up, get ready. And by the way, I noticed a lot of newsrooms doing this thing now with buckling up, and they learned it from our shepherd. I'm just letting you all know that. Good evening, Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon. How are you, sir?
I'm doing really well, Reverend Deacon. I'm doing really good, but as I say, buckle up is a big one. Heavy weight of two rights is how Catholic News titles it.
Yeah.
So there's a big one.
Yeah, I couldn't believe. I mean, I know you like to talk, you don't run from issues. I know you don't run from issues. And that is what a lot of people comment on, that you're willing to take the issues on. Because too many times we try to be so politically correct that we don't take the issues. We don't choose to talk about the issues. But thank you for choosing this issue. So I want to dive straight into this question. Why is abortion wrong?
Well, that is a big question, And, I want to tell you something. I don't think you're going to find a more contentious issue in the Western world right now than this issue of abortion. This has been made so because of a leaked document that claims Roe v. Wade will be overturned. And I want to start by asking people, everybody had their position, everybody have their decision already. Whatever is your position, whatever is your decision, I want you to take your time here. I would ask whichever side of this fence you're on, just take your time and follow me through this. I know it's painful, and I know you may or may not agree with me, but I'm asking that you really take time, follow me through, because it's a very important topic. And it's so important that we really have to be patient in facing it. Don't rush into your position and stick in your corner and say that's what I believe. No. Let us together discover how the church thinks about this issue, because the church has really contemplated this issue for a very, very long time, and because of that long time of contemplation, we really have to work it through carefully and clearly, and do so with a lot of love and a lot of compassion and a lot of grace, to be able to get ourselves to where the church is asking us to be.
Why, I realize from just from that entrance that you're just basically, telling everybody, in a sense, pause, listen, trust, and follow. We had something like that last time.
Yeah.
So going down that route with you today, just pause, just hold up, pause, listen, trust, and follow, because a lot of emotion surrounds this. And we really need people to just listen and really trust in terms of, what God is saying to your own heart in this issue.
Correct.
So, sir,
because, this is one of the real emotional issues. And there are people on both sides of this issue who really feel very, very strongly about it. And what we have to do is recognize that, on both sides, people have a perspective. And that doesn't make them a lesser human being or better human being. People have a perspective. On both sides of the issue, people have a perspective. So let's just understand that whatever your perspective is, people are invested in their perspective. But let us try and get ourselves, not in my perspective, let's try and get ourselves a little closer to the church's perspective. And why do we hold the positions that we hold? Well, because sometimes we're invested in a particular perspective. So let's see where we go. Let's see where we go with this.
I was in reading your article. I want to go to that paragraph when you said, with the prospect of the reversal of Roe versus Wade, many are arguing that this is a regressive step. And the fact is, abortions were done in America, as in Trinidad and Tobago, without it being legal. Let's tackle that one.
That's a big, and that is part of the truth. So there's a new documentary from France that looks at abortion before it was legal in France, and the challenge that women had to go through to have an abortion. You know, if for instance there was a medical complication and you went to the hospital, you had a great risk of being put in jail. If you had a great risk, first, that the abortion would be botched, second, that you could go to jail because of the abortion, and many women after having an abortion could no longer have a baby. So there are significant consequences for women having an abortion. And the doctors could also have been criminalized and jailed for doing abortions at that time. So there are really difficult things here. And anybody who believes that if you make it illegal, it will stop happening, I don't see that as so simple. I think we have to do what we've not done very well, and that is a whole education on why abortion is wrong, and not from a polemical perspective, but from a science perspective and a moral perspective, and help people understand the science so that we start dealing with this thing that we are polarized about. You know, in America, you have two political parties, one believing that abortion, the woman has rights over her body, and the other political party saying that that's so retrogressive that the abortion has to be morally wrong and it should be stopped. And this is now the reason for voting. Mm-hmm. So that's how contentious it is in America. In Trinidad and Tobago, it has not been that contentious, but still, you know, many people feel that a woman should have rights over her own body. It's her body. And many people feel that it should not be a criminal act if a woman chooses to have an abortion, because at the end of the day, it's her body. Well, that's not quite what the church teaches, and that's the problem. And we have to get to what the church teaches and why she teaches it. And I think there's very good reason for why the church is teaching what she's teaching.
Yeah, well, I want to go to the estimates that you put out, saying according to one estimate, between 200,000 and 1 million abortions per year were done in America before it was legal. And mm-hmm. I mean, what you said just now is that many women died or ended up with a botched job with serious health complications. And the whole challenge came about that a woman has a right to decide over her body, and this should not be taken away. And others cite the case of rape where the woman didn't consent, or where the pregnancy could be injurious to the woman and her life. So these are kind of, if you want to call it, heavy weights that people drop on you with regards to abortion rights.
And the fact that they don't know, but somewhere between 200,000 and 1 million abortions were happening a year before Roe v. Wade, and before it became legal in America to have abortions. That in itself is a staggering number.
Yes.
Now the number is so much higher.
Mm-hmm.
It is so much higher now. So that in itself, you know, it is so staggering. But the other thing is that what people are willing to risk to have an abortion, and that I find is even more staggering, because many women died, or they ended up, you know, in serious medical challenge, and whatever the thinking was, they were willing to do that rather than keep and have the child, and in great numbers. And we'll have to talk about that at another time in another show. But at this time, what is important to understand is that there are real risks in abortion before it became legal. Now that it has become legal, you don't hear of women dying or ended up with botched jobs in the same way, or the same serious health complications. But nobody's counting the psychological complications. Nobody's counting the spiritual complications. Nobody's counting what women go through after having an abortion, the emotional complications of having the abortion, and what that weighs on her, both in terms of shame, guilt, and her soul, her conscience. The people are not asking about that question. So I am just putting forward one side of the coin and one side of the argument. This is what people say, that, you know, you have to look at, women have been having abortions long before it became legal, and the risk to the women was much worse than it is right now. You take away legal abortions, and what you will have is high-risk abortions returning to America. Okay, but there's another side to the coin, you know. And I hear that side, and I do sympathize a lot with it. You see, for this side of the coin, for many a woman, the woman has a right to decide over her body. And that right over her body is what people feel should not be taken away. And that's something that has to be really thought through very carefully. Because, you know, if a woman presented herself to a doctor and said, look, this arm of mine, I really don't like it. I need you to cut it off for me. Will a doctor cut off a perfectly healthy arm? Or if the woman says, you know, my liver, I don't like the fact that I have a liver. I need you to take it out, and the liver is perfectly healthy. Will the doctor do that? You know, where is the woman's right? Where does the woman's right on her body end? Because a doctor has sworn an oath for health. So can a doctor do what will not bring health to a patient? I really think the answer to that is no. A doctor can't take away a woman's foot, even if she requests and begs for her foot to be amputated, because she sees herself as a one-footed person. I can't see how a doctor would do that and keep to their oath of health. But let's just say we have to at least understand that the people who are proposing abortion, they're not proposing it as silly people or as bad people, but they have a perspective, and that perspective has brought them to where they are. And we have to understand that perspective. The other big challenge with abortion is the whole case of rape, where a woman just did not consent to the sexual act. A woman who consented and then regretted, became pregnant, and that's different. But in a case of rape where a woman did not consent, what happens next? You know, should she be forced to carry that baby full term? and you know, at the end of it, have to live through that rape over and over and over again as she sees the face of that baby for all of its life. Is that, you know, what the church teaches? Well, you know, and here again, we'll come back to this because it really depends on how you see the whole thing. Really, really depends if how you see it. If you see the woman having a right over her body, then you see it one way. If you see the unborn child as a human, then you see it in another way. And that's really it. What happens when the pregnancy is injurious to the woman, to the woman's life? Does the doctor have a choice to take that child and allow the woman to live? All of these are the big questions that people throw at us when we start to talk about abortion. And I don't want to talk about abortion and not at least acknowledge these are very real questions. These are very, very real questions, ones that we have to contemplate deeply. But there is a reason why the church believes and does what she does.
Wow, I mean, you just give us a mouthful there, and I just want to, you know, just extend that where, because of medical advancements and so on, they can also tell if the baby within the womb is going to be Down syndrome. So therefore,
Yes.
that is also an argument, they say, for aborting the baby. You know, because, you know, listen, you know, this baby in the womb, it's Down syndrome, it may have some medical challenges, and therefore we see that, you know, we want to give you this option, this right to be able to take that child. And there's so many issues, but I even want to extend it further when we're talking about the rights. You spoke about the rights, and you also spoke about, well, listen, a perfectly healthy arm, you know, but I feel that I need you to cut it off. You see, I think, wasn't it John? No, Pope Paul VI also spoke, you know, and he said, listen, what you will see if we allow things like abortion and contraception and so on, we will reach all the way to euthanasia. And this is
Yes.
what we are seeing now. We are seeing
Yeah.
emerging in some cultures, right? Where it is my right to take my own life if I don't think that I want to live with a terminal illness. So it has, you know, his prophecy has really come true, because we see in some societies where they are allowing you to take your own life, you know.
And that's a real big challenge that we're facing. That, you know, one thing leads to another, another leads to another, and before you know where you are, you're way down that rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no easy way back out of it. But I'm saving that for another show. I'm saving that one for another show. You see, there are many good reasons why people propose to keep abortion legal. Huh? But when you look behind the reasons, each of them focus on the woman, her rights, her state of mind, life choices, and lifestyle. That's kind of where it all goes. So whatever you propose in terms of abortion, or whatever reasons you put up for, it's really focusing on the woman and the woman's rights over her body, her state of mind, her choices, but also her lifestyle. The greatest reason for abortion is that it's an inconvenient time to have a child. And so let's get rid of this child is the next thing. So it's really about lifestyle and choices that are keeping with you in a very different way. But I would say we have to be sympathetic to women who are put in this position. And you know, one of the things you and I have to both at least agree to is that most times the problem is that the man is not available to see this woman through pregnancy to the rest of her life. And the man pays very little price, either in terms of society or in terms of lifestyle, for his act and for what he has done. And so, you know, we have to be at least understanding that a woman going to an abortion is impaired in her thinking because most times she's not getting the kind of support that she needs. And sometimes the man is pushing her for it because it would be shameful for him or whatever it is that he concocts. So we have to see that. But many women have faced great distress and have had their lives torn apart over these choices. And we have to also see that too. This is not something where we can look at women who have had an abortion and judge them or condemn them. The church has to be merciful and say, okay, you've done what we believe is wrong, but mercy is what we want to bring you to. Come to the sacrament of confession. Come and beg God's mercy and let us help you to heal from that wound that you have had. Because many women I know who have had abortions have come back after and asked the hard question, okay, how do I heal from this? Because I still feel that I've done something terrible. I still feel that, and I can't let that go. And that also indicates something, that whatever we can say about the woman, her body, her rights, there's something also in the woman who's had an abortion that really feels the pain of that. And that we have to also acknowledge, and we have to also realize that there's something else here that really has acted upon the woman.
Well, I just want to just endorse what you just said, and while we are speaking about this, to encourage women, you know, if you have had an abortion, you know, this beautiful sacrament of reconciliation, you know, is an amazing healing for you, especially what you're going through right now. It is just like Archbishop Jay shared with you, you know, women have also come with me in my counseling sessions and have expressed deep regret, you know, in terms of what they've done. And this isn't a deep regret coming out of the kind of culture that we have, which is, you know, we come from a very strong Christian culture in Trinidad and Tobago. And even some of our other brothers and sisters from the other faiths have this very strong belief that this is a life and it should be sacred within the womb. But it comes from something that is even deeper. And I would think that this is something, you know, where, you know, your soul is speaking to you that, okay, what has just transpired does not set right with my own soul, and nothing to do with society and our strong society with regards to, you know, its feelings and so on and about abortion, but it's something that is even deeper. And the sacrament of reconciliation is the most beautiful sacrament to put you on that road to healing.
Absolutely. And it's there I want to go to for anyone who has had an abortion. I don't want you to hear condemnation. I want you to hear, okay, this was done. This is not in our teaching. You for whatever reasons you had at that time, you've made your decision. But let's come back to God now, and let's go for mercy. Amen. Let's go for mercy, and let's go for God's mercy here. You know, there's an old saying that my rights extend as far as my hand could reach without hitting the person next to me. So if my rights stop here, because if I go further, I might be colliding with your rights. Because if you're sitting next to me and I want to stretch my hand out, and I have a right to extend my hands and to stretch my body, but my right has to end wherever your face is.
Some people even say, don't enter my space. You know what I mean? They even say, like, this is my space. Don't enter my space, please. You know?
So, but my right ends wherever your face is.
Okay.
And I think we have to see the two sets of rights. There's a woman's right and her body. But there's another right here. What about the right of the unborn fetus? What about the right of the unborn fetus? And how do we weigh up the right of the woman, her body, her lifestyle, and her needs against the rights of the unborn fetus? Its dignity, its inherent dignity, and its capacity, and its God-given right to exist. How do we weigh this? And that's really the point that I wanted to arrive at, because remember, my rights end wherever your face begins. Because if I stretch past into your face, I no longer dealing with my rights. I'm dealing with a violation of your body. And that's one thing I want you to hold, that we understand that in this physical world. So we understand, two siblings, and I'm sure you have this experience, two siblings, one get a nice jersey, the other one have a hot party to go to, and decide, something, you see that jersey or that shirt my brother get, that will suit me just fine in this party. And go and picks up their brothers or their sisters' clothing, put it on and go to the party. Where does one's rights begin and end?
I don't know.
You look like you had some experience.
Wait. I want to know if you are your ears or eyes are on the wall sometimes in my house. Listen, my girls, that is WAR, war.
But it's happened.
It does. It does happen.
And what we have to hear is that my rights have a finiteness to them. The right of every individual, there's a finiteness. I don't have a right to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, and how I want to do it. And that's a piece that we have to see. So how you see the fetus determines how you weigh these two rights, the rights of the woman and the rights of the unborn child. How you see the fetus determines how you weigh these two rights. And that's something that is real. Because people have seen the fetus so different. So let's go down a little historical sojourn now. You see, in before modern medicine, Aristotle's theory of reproduction prevailed for more than 1,000 years. And he believed the child came entirely from the sperm of the man. All that the woman contributed was a place for the sperm to grow into become a human being. And the woman was just providing a home or lodging. He also believed that it took time and a process to turn matter from the woman's womb into a human with a soul. And so Aristotle had what we would now call a defective biological model. A model where the fetus was just a growing sperm. He didn't understand that the woman contributed parts to this equation, because he didn't have the medical apparatus that we now have to investigate and to be able to understand the things that we understand. So you're dealing with a biological model that ran for over 1,000 years that we could say is a defective model. And from that model, a lot of the thinking emerged. He knew nothing of the ovum, and as such began with a model that only had the sperm being implanted inside of the woman, and somehow from something inside of the woman, that sperm grows into a human being. That's kind of the model. But this Aristotelian model believed the fetus became a human being at birth. And that's really the clincher. Because if Aristotle, all the time in the womb, well, that you're a human being yet. You become a human being at birth. So for over 1,000 years, based on a defective biological model, we had a view of these things that we have held. Now, the Bible, I think, has a very different perspective. And it is that perspective that we also have to explore. In Jeremiah 1:5, Jeremiah says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Now, that text says something really important, you know. Before you were in your mother's womb, I knew you, which means that God knows us even before conception. Before you were in your mother's womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. So before conception, but while gestating in the mother's womb, God already set the prophet apart and appointed the prophet as a prophet to the nations. And what this text is saying is that God has a vocation for us that happens before baptism. The vocation happens before baptism. Hear what Isaiah 44:4 says. It speaks about God forming the prophet in the womb. Isaiah 49:15 says, even if a woman forget the child of the womb, God will never forget us. Well, the unthinkable has happened. Mothers have forgotten the child of their womb, but still God will not forget us. And that the text was put that that's the most unthinkable thing that you could ever imagine, that a woman would forget the child of her womb. But the text is saying, even if this most unthinkable of all things have happened, God will not forget us.
I think what I love about it too is what's key in both of them is that here is Isaiah speaking, and Isaiah says, the child in the womb. So therefore,
Yes.
he is saying this is a human being. This is a human
Yes.
being in the womb, versus what
Correct.
Aristotle is saying only when you're born, and which a
Yeah.
lot of other cultures say, no, the child is only a child when it comes out of the womb. I mean, now that's another story.
Correct.
Because they're even saying, you know, there's a certain time after the child is born, or partial birth abortions. It's craziness, but I know you have a plan for that. But here is Isaiah saying, this is a child, this is in the womb.
Yeah. Yeah. And God will never forget us. But the comparison is the child in the womb. Mm-hmm. And that child in the womb, God is saying is unforgettable to the mother. Unforgettable and unforgettable to God. So already we lay in a kind of a foundation from scripture where we started to see that before I was formed in the womb, God knew me. And while I was gestating in the womb, God was doing stuff, calling me to mission. Yeah. Psalm 71:6 says, or it speaks about God being the active agent in bringing us from our mother's womb into birth. And I like that because it is God who brings the child into full flourishing. Or Psalm 139:13 says, "For you created my innermost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb." Wow. Wow. You created my innermost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. Now, whatever else, God is the active agent.
Yeah.
So whatever is happening inside of the womb, God is the active agent that knits each person together in his mother's womb or her mother's womb. And that's a whole different perspective. This is not some biological thing happening because of sperm growing and getting oversized. This is something that is happening where God is the principal agent. And this gives us our perspective, our biblical perspective. And I would say, whatever the biological understanding, the scripture speaks about a person in the womb.
Yeah.
A person who is called by God, a person with special purpose, a person who is brought into being by God's action. And I think that is something that we really have to start hearing and listening to, that it is not just a chance, or somebody say, I was unlucky, I get pregnant. Well, okay, but this child is a child being brought into being by God himself.
And called for a special purpose, called for a special purpose. And so many times, you would hear, boy, look at my son, he's a doctor, he's the prime minister, he's the what, you know what I mean? And this child was called from the womb for a special vocation. And therefore, we are telling God, well, here what's going on. I am not too sure if what vocation you have for this child, but I have a vocation for this child, you understand? To terminate it, without thinking that, hey, this child could be the next one who discovers the cure for cancer. This child could be somebody who saves other people's lives, and so many amazing things. Because
child could be the most loving child that the parent has.
Yeah. And there are some amazing examples about that.
Yeah. Of people whose parents considered abortion, relented in the last minute, and what they went on to do and the contribution that they made in the world.
Yeah.
It's just stellar. Really something. I want to say again, the being in the womb is known to God. It already has a vocation. And unless we could hear that, we don't understand why the Catholic position is as it is. But it is as it is because we believe God already knows the child and has already given the child a special reason for its life. And therefore, we all should be safeguarding that vocation that God has given to this child still in the mother's womb. A 2nd century father of the church, Tertullian, he says, it is anticipated murder to prevent someone from being born. It makes little difference whether one kills a soul already born or puts it to death at birth. He who will one day be a is a man already. That is the most simple, this 2nd century without all the biology we have.
Yeah.
He who will one day be a man is a man already. And Tertullian there says, whatever you think about whatever is in the womb, that is already a human being. That I think is a vital way of seeing it from early in our tradition. This is how the tradition understands the unborn child. He who will one day be a man is a man already. In other words, what is happening in the womb, wherever you think the state of that thing is, if it's going to be a man or a woman, it is a man or a woman already. It is a person already. And so Tertullian gives us a principle. And when that principle is combined with the biblical view, we have like a big explosion there. Because with Tertullian's principle, in other words, and he's using Aristotelian logic, because what's the end? What's the end? If you leave this thing undisturbed, what is its end? Its end is to be a man or a woman. Therefore, if the end is to be a man or a woman, it is a man or a woman already. It is a person already, is a logic there. But combine that now with the whole biblical that we have just gone through, and you start to see not only is it a man or woman already, but that man or woman has already been given a purpose by God, already has a mission, and already has a vocation. And that God is the active participant in the knitting together of this person in the womb. And all of that put together starts to push us now into a very different perspective of how we see the child in the womb. And this is before Tertullian had any special insights into the understanding of the fetus, because he had the same Aristotelian model that everybody else had for the 1,000 years.
Wow. I see you're sojourning now into biology and new models as you're speaking about, a fact sheet from the U.S. Bishops' Conference.
Yeah, they have a lovely fact sheet on abortion and things that we have to consider. One of the facts that already jumped out at me, it said, in 1827, with the discovery of the human ovum. So imagine all of them years passed, and it's only in 1827 that they discovered that the woman, that the woman supplies the egg and the man the sperm, and that's how conception happens. This is a relatively late discovery, 1827. Okay, so it says that in 1827, with the discovery of the human ovum, the mistaken biology of Aristotle was discredited. Scientists increasingly understood that the union of sperm and egg at conception produced a new living being that is distinct from both mother and father.
Wow.
And this is what is vital, because with the Aristotelian model, you had an idea of the child being just, something that is happening biologically in the mother, not really part of the mother per se. So in other words, if she don't want to give it logic, well, that is enough. What the new medical model suggests is that the sperm and the egg together produce a living being that is distinct from both mother and father. That is different. This is new. And if the fetus is a distinct human being, then we have to understand that we're dealing with something very different, very new, in terms of our medical model.
I'm amazed that in terms of this medical fact, that is less than 200 years old. Just less than 200 years old. This is really recent.
Correct. Modern genetics demonstrates that this individual is, at the onset, distinctly human, with the inherent and active potential to mature into a human fetus, infant, child, and adult. And this is now, this is very different again. So when each of us have a signature in our DNA, and now you could map, you know, if you do a DNA test, your mother do a DNA test, and your sisters do a DNA test, they will tell you from the company that somebody, a relative of yours has also tested. And if both give consent, say, well, no, this is actually a sibling, or this is a parent.
Yeah.
So DNA testing now tell the difference between a person's mother or person's sibling. And I think that that is vital, because it means that it could also say that the person is a person with a signature different from mom and different from siblings. And that is very important. From 1869 onwards, the obstacle and the distinction between ensouled and unsouled fetus was permanently removed from canon law on abortion. The ensouled and the unsouled was how we saw it because of Aristotle.
Yeah.
But now with DNA, with a more accurate medical model, what we see is this fetus has everything to be a human being if it is left alone. And it has a unique signature in its DNA that we can detect from right up front.
Wow. Wow. From 1869 onward, you're saying the obsolete distinction between the ensouled and the unensouled fetus was permanently removed from canon law on abortion. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's because the medical model shifted.
Yeah, yeah.
So that the ensouled and the unensouled was the Aristotelian model.
Right.
That believed that at some stage, you know, the fetus received the soul.
Right. Right.
Now we have a different medical model that talks about the fetus having everything in itself that is distinct from mom and dad, but everything in itself to become an adult if it was just allowed. And it is that allowing it to come to full term.
Yeah. Allowing it to come to full term, what?
Is really what we dealing with. So as Tertullian said 1600 years earlier, he who will one day be a man is a man already.
Yeah.
Genetics now prove Tertullian right, eh?
Yes. Yes.
Because the fetus already has everything it needs to have to become a man or a woman.
Yeah.
And that's how the biological model has shifted. So in fact, we have far better understanding of the fetus being an individual today than we did 200 years ago. And we've had more abortions today than we would have had 200 years ago.
Wow.
And that has its own problematic that we'll have to look at another time. But once Aristotle's biological model was debunked, it became clear that the fetus in the womb was a unique person, distinct from mom and from dad. Genetics has made the point even clearer. You're not dealing with an extension of mom, and you're not dealing with an extension of dad. You're dealing with a distinct being. Genetic signature is distinct from mom and from dad, but holds a lot of mom and of dad, enough to be able to trace who mom is and who dad is, and to have, and even to trace all siblings because of how the connection in the genome is, but distinct. And that, I think, is a revolutionary point. Because if what is in the woman's womb is an individual that is distinct genetically from mom and dad, that contains all the genetics required to become fetus, child, toddler, teen, and adult, then really and truly, can we talk about a woman's rights over her body when this being in her body is not an organ or an extension of her, but is actually a unique genetic being that is inside of her? This is not like her liver or spleen or colon, you know. This is a unique individual that is housed inside of her. And I think that distinction has to be made. And if we see it that way, that it is a unique genetic species, then we have to say, then what is a woman's right over her body? Does she also have a right over this unique genetic species that is growing inside of her? And I think, where does a woman's right end? Wherever a unique individual person exists. And if that is so outside of the womb, how could we not see it so inside of the womb also? Once we have established that fetus is a unique person that has been given mission, given vocation, and given all the genetics to become an adult human being, once we establish that, then we can't keep looking at the fetus as a part of a woman's body. We have to look at it as an individual housed inside of a woman's body.
How, this is a challenging thing for anybody. I mean, and especially women. This is extremely challenging for them to hold, what I would say is to hold these two facts.
Paradox.
Yes.
Paradox.
That's a paradox. All right, we come back to our paradox here. This is an unbelievable paradox. And it must be challenging for them. How do you get then the woman, the person, the two partners in this, in bringing this life together? How do you get them then to see that this individual, this human being, because it's not a cat, it's not a dog, it's not a rat, it's a human being within the woman's body, has rights, also has rights. It's individual.
And it is a unique individual residing in a woman.
Yes.
Which is different from, this is just a part of a woman's body. It is not a part of a woman's body. It is not. Because to start with, she didn't give birth or bring this into being by what is in her body alone. So it's not just what's in her body. Sperm and egg come together and make a new human being, a brand new creation, different in every fundamental way from every other human being that has ever come into being, including all the siblings and all the family members that this child will have. That's the point. That's the point. This is a unique individual residing in a woman's body. This is not simply part of her body that she could do with as she chooses, but she can't do it her healthy hand or foot the way she chooses anyway. So we have to understand that this is thing. While I was doing the work on this, I remembered seeing something, and I said, something, I want to go and look at the legal perspective, because I like to bring, I like to shake it up with the science, the this, the that, and I like to shake up things. Okay.
Yes.
So when looking at the legal perspective, and that gave me another blow mind perspective. Huh? Your position on abortion is linked to your view on the fetus. Is it an individual, yes or no? Or is it just part of the woman's body? And this is where we've been looking. But here's what. The new 3D ultrasound of a fetus in the utero gives stunning images. And through them, you can see much more than we could have seen through the black and white ultrasound images that we are accustomed to see when the child's sex is revealed. Everybody now having a reveal party.
Yeah.
When you had the ultrasound and you see, oh, it's a boy, oh, it's a girl. Well, that black and white image that's printed out is nothing in comparison to the image that is behind me.
Yeah.
It is really a 3D image. It's a 3D ultrasound of the fetus. And when you look at that, you have to say, I don't know what you've seen, but I've seen toes, I've seen hands, I've seen mouth, nose, eyes, ears, head, body. I've seen everything that a human being has. And when you see the fetus from this perspective as a living organism that has everything that you and I have, even at a couple weeks, everything is already there, and it just becomes more and more pronounced the older the fetus becomes. And I think that is really amazing. It's a blow mind. And yet you have to say it is a unique genetic being that is different from mom. If you do a DNA test on the fetus and you do a DNA test on mom, they share a lot, but they are unique and distinct. And that is a point, that the unique and distinct nature of the fetus, as opposed to mom, means that this is not simply part of mom's body. And this is a unique individual.
And you're quoting, I want everybody to pick up your Catholic news, because in the Catholic news, you dive right into American law.
Yeah. I tell you, again, a legal perspective now. American law has begun to see the fetus as having rights. When you look at a fetal surgery, and whenever fetal surgery gets botched, doctors have been sued for botching fetal surgery. Okay? Now this is the craziness of American law. On the one hand, you could take the child out of the womb and dispose with it. On the other hand, if you choose to have an operation on this child and it gets botched, the doctor could get sued, and the patient is not the mother. The patient has to be the fetus. So it's duplex in its speaking from both sides of his mouth when it comes to that, and this is inconsistent. So when the feminist scholars are terrified with this, and they believe that the inconsistencies once established could be used to erode existing abortion rights. They argue that inclusion of fetus within the protection of wrongful death law begins to establish fetal constitutional rights, which could become powerful enough to outweigh a woman's right to privacy.
Whoa, hold on. There's American law?
American law, okay? And that's why, because it's Roe versus Wade being overturned, that's why I've gone to the American law to show how inconsistent the law is. If an operation on the fetus gets botched, we treating it one way, but you could take it out and you could kill it, and that's okay. But the feminists have realized, no. If we keep giving the fetus the protection of wrongful death under law, then it will start having constitutional rights. Then the woman's right to do with what she wants with her body will evaporate. Well, here we have it. Okay? Here we have it. And this is the inconsistency in the legal view of the fetus in the woman's body. And that inconsistency is causing the challenge. So I give a citation, go to the Catholic News, you get the citation. The argument also surrounds viability, because remember, you could have an abortion up to the end of the first trimester. The reason for that was after that, the child is viable. So what does viability mean? Viability, the argument of viability, which is the independent existence of the second life, can, in reason and all fairness, be the object of state protection. Viability occurs when the second life can exist in a reasonable way where it can become the object of state protection. In other words, when this second life, and you know they call it second life, it is legal American jargon. When this second life can stand on its own 2 feet, metaphorically, then it should have state protection. Now, what is the viability of any of us supporting our life underwater or on the moon without technological support? If I was to take you underwater and say, okay, you know, you're no longer viable, you're not viable. So in other words, the argument of viability is really an argument about technology. And that is one that they're not seeing. I am not viable below water, or if I went to Mars or the moon and I had to step out onto that planet without technology, I will not be viable. And so the argument about viability means that what you're saying is the fetus, its natural habitat and home is the mother's womb. And you want it to exist outside of its natural habitat and say, because it cannot, we could kill it. I'm showing there's a fallacy in that argument. Yeah. It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. What is the home of the fetus? The womb. What's your home? This planet. And air, not below water, not moon, and not Mars. And so the whole viability argument also is a strange argument, because as modern medicine advances, we can support a fetus earlier and earlier. Does that mean the definition of personhood is dependent upon the technology and technological advancement? If from the moment of conception, we can support that fetus without the woman's womb, does it mean that abortion is now illegal because the fetus can exist outside of the womb? And I'm just pushing on the viability argument, which is how the date up to which an abortion could happen first emerged. And all of this to say that we really have a botched way of seeing this thing. Is the fetus a human being? Yes or no? The Catechism of the Catholic Church, 2770 to 75, lays out the teaching of the church very clearly. Abortion is a moral evil, a violation of the 5th commandment. Those who have an abortion or assist in one cut themselves off from the church. And they're excommunicated. They need to go to confession to be reinstated in the church. And that's as clear as the catechism goes. And this is not putting shame or blame or guilt on any woman who has had an abortion. Find a priest, go to the priest and do 2 things. Have reconciliation. And the second thing to do, offer masses for that unborn child. Do those 2 things. And that will bring healing. So what's my key message? The fetus is a unique genetic life that is different from the mother. It is a person from the moment of conception, and as such enjoys all the human rights that you and I enjoy.
Wow. Elizabeth, this is a big one.
Yep.
Sanford.
Action step. Reflect deeply on this teaching. What makes you uncomfortable about it? How do we respond to women who have had abortions? And I would say that has to be love, mercy, and compassion. Was the scripture reading? Well, Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as prophet to the nations. But also look at the Catechism, 2770 to 2775. Let us pray.
Amen.
Father, your mercy and your love is always surpass our own incomprehension. We pray, oh God, for each person looking at this show. And we pray, oh God, for everyone who has had an abortion, and for each of the unborn children. We pray, oh God, mercy, 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 that you take their little souls to you, oh God, and restore us, Lord. Help us to see the dignity of human life, and help us to understand, Lord, why we must protect that dignity from the moment of conception to the moment of natural death. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Archbishop J. Everybody, get to your Catholic news. You know we're on spot these days, and so you're getting the show, you know what I mean? And the Catholic news is right there at your stands. God bless you. Have a nice weekend. Thank you, Archbishop J. See you soon.
God bless. Derek.
God bless.